Добро утро, чуваме ли се с всички? Добро утро от мен, Румяна Кръстева от Ритбул. С приветствие към всички колеги, които в тази ранна, топла сутрин се включиха. Събрали сме се да представим марката, на която Ритбул е официален представител, Westermo. От страна на Ритбул ще кажа няколко думи аз, Румяна Кръстева, с помощта на нашия партньор Нори Шакер от Westermo, който ще продължи в повече детайли по отношение на продукти, приложения и спецификация. Ритбул, както знаете, е търговска фирма, която оперира над 20 години на българския пазар и основните дейности са свързани с нос и дистрибуция на продукти от водещи европейски компании. Основно се залага при избора на партньори, основно се залага на качеството и затова Westermo е една марка, която е с сериозна заявка по отношение на високо качество. Ритбул е официален представител на марката Westermo за България повече от 9 години. Westermo е шведска фирма, която се занимава и произвежда специализирано за индустриални и промишлени приложения комуникационно оборудване. Както те се определят, силата е в приложения и в изграждане на мрежови структури в стратегически важни обекти. Какво значи стратегически важни обекти? Места, където пропадането на мрежата е от фатално значение, места, където трябва да се осигури постоянен достъп, наблюдение и където не може да се направи никакъв компромис по отношение на хардуера и софтуера, който се използва. Железопътни мрежи, минно дело, корабоплаване и морска автоматизация в областта на морската индустрия, нефтени и газови рафинерии, всякакви области, в които се налага да има постоянно 24/7 наблюдение. Особено в енергетика, автоматизация и места, където трябва да се заложи на сигурност по отношение на хардуера, сигурност също така по отношение на операционната система и по отношение на възможността за неавторизиран достъп и хакерски атаки. Именно по тази причина Westermo се ориентират към тези сектори, където има високи изисквания към оборудването, както към хардуера, така и към софтуера. На този слайд може да видите някои от световно известните компании, които са заложили на Westermo в тяхното серийно производство. Това просто като информация. Този слайд сме го нарекли Westermo факти и цифри. Компанията е основана 1975 година и е базирана в Швеция, където са и производствените мощности на компанията. Развива се, няма да е грубо, ако се каже, стремително по отношение на продажби и по отношение на връзки с клиентите, но това, което искам да обърна внимание като цифра, е процента инвестиции в научно-развойни дейности, или както сега се нарича R&D инвестиции. 14%, дори в световен мащаб, е един сравнително висок процент. И това показва намеренията на компанията за бъдещо развитие, техническата компетенция и възможностите за по-нататъчни дълготрайни активи на пазара. Инвестициите обикновено в компании с сериозни претенции, сериозни производствени компании, обикновено варира 3, 5 до 10%, 14% инвестиции в научно-развойна дейност е един наистина висок процент. Това може да покаже техническата компетенция на компанията и за какво става дума. Няколко думи ще кажа също за Westermo. Westermo е част от BHR групата. Това е шведска компания, високотехнологична, която се състои от няколко фирми. Предлага на пазара цифрови решения, специална електроника и комуникационно оборудване. Westermo, като част от BHR Group, през последната година, през 2019 година, се разшири, като придоби две нови компании. Това са шведската Neratec, която е специализирана в специални решения за железопътния транспорт, и Virtual Access. Това е една ирландска компания, която е специализирана в телекомуникационно оборудване и телекомуникационна техника. Решенията на много от водещите световни доставчици на телекомуникационни услуги ползват продукти на Virtual Access. Такива едни са, примерно, Deutsche Telekom, като по-известно име, Телесонера. Накратко ще представя продуктовата гама, а по-нататък в презентацията ще се включи нашия партньор от Westermo, който ще влезе повече в детайл и ще обърне внимание и на новите продукти. Както казах и в началото, обекта на дейност на фирмата е в комуникационно оборудване. Това са суичове, рутери, модеми и устройства за отдалечен достъп на места, където не може да се ползва интернет или или няма положени кабели. Това са така наречените мобилни рутери. Ще ви направи впечатление имената, всяка една от сериите има специфично име. Това не е случайно избрано, като търси се някаква символика, като например серията Lynx. Това са управляеми суичове, които оперират в Layer 2, Layer 3. Red Fox са сървъри и суичове специално за вграждане в ракове. Wolverine, опасното име, са интернет разширители. Viper са специализирани суичове за приложение в ЖП транспорта. Един набор от устройства за комуникация, пак специално осигуряване на Wi-Fi достъп и дистанционен достъп, също с приложение в ЖП транспорта, и мобилни рутери и модеми. Компактните суичове от серията Lynx се характеризират с високо бързо действие и с различен набор от портове. Това, което е характерно за всичките устройства от гамата на Westermo, че ползват операционната система WIOS. Тя е разработка на Westermo и е с много добавки по отношение на бързодействието, по отношение на защитата, по отношение на преконфигурирането на мрежата. Има един параметър, който се нарича MTBF. Той определя часовете работа, дава се в часове и определя времето за работа между два отказа. По отношение на този параметър MTBF, както и по-нататък ще стане дума в презентацията на моя колега от Westermo, по отношение на този параметър, компактните суичове от серията Lynx държат първо място в света по отношение на всичките си конкуренти. Стойността на MTBF почва от 4700 нагоре. Значи, тук говорим за продължителност на работа над 15 години. Тоест, свичовете са проектирани така, че да могат да издържат дълго време в тежки условия на работа. Характеризират се с това, че имат различен набор от портове, 4, 6, 8 RG порта и 2 до 4 оптични порта. Оптичните портове са реализирани с SFP, така че да са независими по отношение на инфраструктурното окабеляване. Да не са зависими и да трябва да се сменя устройството само заради това, че няма съответния конектор изведен отпред на панела. Малко по-нататък в презентацията моя колега ще обърне внимание на новите модели, специално от тази серия, които са специално проектирани за приложение в енергетиката. Рутерите от серията Red Fox също са една интересна гама. Те са подготвени за вграждане проектирани са за вграждане в 19-инчови шкафове с брой портове до 28. Особеното при тях е, че няма движещи се части отпред. Всичките портове са направени механично с уплътнения, така че да се защитат от прах и от възможности на влизане на финни частици. Пък обвивката е метална. Съответно, температурният диапазон е от 40 до 70 градуса, в съответствие с изискванията за индустриален температурен диапазон за приложение в индустрията. Малко внимание ще обърна на разширителите от серията Wolverine. Това е една серия, която е специално проектирана за места, където няма възможност да се разшири инфраструктурата или трябва по някакви причини да се ползва старата инфраструктура. Разширителите от серията Wolverine ползват технологията SDHL, която дава възможност да се използват усукана двойка за пренос на данни на по-големи разстояния. Както знаете, стандартните интернет мрежови комуникатори могат да се свържат с кабели не по-дълги от 100 метра, докато с помощта на разширителите на Westermo от серията Wolverine може да се постигне разстояние до 15 км и повече, в зависимост от спецификата на кабела, разбира се, който се използва, и с сравнително висока скорост на пренос на данните. Кога се използват разширителите? Когато трябва, примерно, да се направи разширение на някой обект, който вече имат такива приложения, примерно за разширение на метрото, има вече положени кабели. Проектирането на нова инфраструктура, полагането на нови кабели, било то оптични или медни, изисква, освен средства, изисква допълнително много време. Затова на помощ идват разширителите, които дават възможност да се използват вложените вече медни кабели и да се осигури дистанционен достъп, да се осигури достъп на много по-големи разстояния. Също така едно типично приложение в видеонаблюдението, когато IP камерите са разположени на место, където не могат да бъдат примерно повече от 150 метра и е трудно да бъдат достигнати. Едно такова приложение, примерно на един дълъг мост 7 км, на който трябва да се изградат IP наблюдателни камери, и тогава свързването между тях няма как да се осигури с стандартни суичове и на помощ идват разширителите от гамата Wolverine. Както казах, ползват технологията SDHL, която дава възможност за пренос на данни по усукана двойка. Серията Viper са компактни суичове, които са специално разработени за ЖП транспорта и са с сертификат 50-155, който се изисква за приложение в железопътния транспорт. Кое прави по-уникално приложението в железопътния транспорт? От една страна вибрациите, които са много по-силни, от друга страна много по-голямото влияние на електромагнитни смущения. Суичовете са всичките суичове от тази серия са с конектори M12, 2, 4, 8 до 12 порта и осигуряват пренос на данни до 100 мегабита в секунда. В допълнение към тази гама са бежичните устройства, те са от серията RT. На тази гама малко по-нататък в презентацията ще се спре нашия партньор от Westermo за осигуряване на бежичен достъп, за достъп между отделните вагони, за осигуряване на Wi-Fi достъп между каретите и също така за достъп на пасажирите. Това са областите на приложение на устройствата от тази серия. Характеризират се с това, че осигуряват висока скорост на пренос на данните в относително високо зашумена среда, каквато е при железопътния транспорт. Бежичните индустриални рутери на Westermo са една много силна гама, която в последните години търпи много бурно развитие с развитието и на бежичните технологии. В тази гама се включват и устройствата от Virtual Access. Характеризират се с това, че имат една или две SIM карти, обикновено един или два RG порта. Някои от тях имат допълнително сериен порт. Така че има доста голям избор в зависимост от приложението. Навсякъде, където трябва да се направи дистанционен достъп до SCADA, до панел за управление или където просто трябва да се свържат на по-големи разстояния отделни обекти, на помощ идват мобилните рутери. Характерно за тях е, че операционната система iOS поддържа специален механизъм за по-висока степен на защита, така наречената киберсигурност. Допълнително така наречената гама за индустриални продукти за пренос на данни. Тук се включват неуправляемите суичове, серийните конвертори, DSL рутерите и модемите, оптични модеми, също така и медиа конвертори. Тъй като производството е специализирано за индустриално приложение, голяма част от оптичните модеми поддържат конверсия на оптика, сериен интерфейс към оптика и също така и модемните устройства, сериен интерфейс към IP и TCP/IP. Някои от основните приложения ще разгледа моя колега по-нататък в презентацията. Аз тук съм се спряла на някои, които са за последните 2 години така най-мащабните по отношение на брой използвани устройства. Мрежа за контрол на железопътна система, която е изградена в Съединените щати, и мрежа за контрол и управление на соларна централа в Испания. Това е една интересна реализация, много голяма централа самка, на която цялата система за управление и наблюдение е поддържана от устройства и изградена с помощта на суичове и комуникатори на Westermo. Нататък ще дам думата на нашия партньор от Westermo, който ще продължи с малко по-детайлно описание на продуктите и където има нужда ще се включваме за пояснение на където има неразбиране. Ако имате въпроси, записвайте си ги, също така може и в чата да ги пускате. Накрая ще имаме време за отговор на въпроси, които са ви хрумнали. Сега Презентацията ще продължи от страна на нашите партньори от Westermo в лицето на Нориша Кер, който отговаря за Европа и за Средния и Близкия изток. Нори?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so let me share my screen. I need to activate my share screen. So if I can do that. All right. So.
Само секунда, че нещо явно технически проблеми има колегата.
So can you see my screen?
Hey Nuri, again your microphone is terrible, so I'll send you the link on WhatsApp and just log in from your cell phone so that you could speak through the microphone of the cell phone and use your computer to present the slides. Okay? Currently we are seeing the slides, just enter the full screen mode. Okay, so yes, everything is perfect with the slides. So right now I will send you an invitation on your phone. Yes, it's moving. Yes, it's moving. It's perfect. But you should speak through your cell phone. I will send you an invitation to your cell phone because the microphone from your computer is terrible. All right.
Момент само докато се организира включването на Нори. Още малко ще поема аз думата и ще кажа няколко думи по отношение на операционната система и по отношение на възможностите за преконфигуриране на мрежата. Операционната система поддържа протоколи Fast Recovery Network Technology, която дава възможност за много бързо преконфигуриране на мрежата в топология Ring. От порядъка на 20 милисекунди е времето за преконфигурация, което също е така, в сравнение с конкурентите на пазара, може да се каже най-малкото време за преконфигурация на мрежата. Това също е един показател, характерен за приложението в индустриалните среди, където трябва да се вземат много бързи мерки по отношение на, особено в топология Ring. Ритбул има удоволствието да разчита на Westermo, ако има някакви специални запитвания, тъй като те разполагат с богат технически опит, с технически екип, така че можем да предложим на нашите клиенти и решения, евентуално за избор на устройства. В областта на енергетиката, с навлизането на нови изисквания и с разрастването на мрежата от подстанции, нараства и нуждата от така наречената устойчива автоматизация в енергетиката. И затова Westermo от миналата година разшириха своята гама на управляеми суичове с няколко модела, които са специално насочени с приложения в енергетиката. Какво значи специално насочени за енергетиката? Това означава от една страна, че имат необходимия сертификат, от друга страна, че имат необходимия брой портове за поддържане, освен на стандартните RG 45, така и за поддържане на оптика. Особеното, както казах и тук, е, че всичките оптични портове са с SFP. Като аксесуари, Westermo предлага много голям набор от SFP устройства, които дават възможност да се сменят, евентуално ако се наложи пренасене на оборудването на друго место, така че, както казах, да са независими от спецификата на инфраструктурата и на конекторите, които са вложени. Може винаги да се ползва същия switch, само като му се смени SFP трансивера. Дали Нори е готов да се включи? Нори? Ще продължа аз още малко, докато моя колега се оправи с микрофона и ще кажа още няколко думи.
Nuri, go ahead to see whether the microphone is better now.
Yes, can you hear me now?
No.
It's not better. Okay. Yeah, that's the usual. Can you hear me now?
Не, значи давайте тогава.
Така, ще продължа аз, тъй като имаме проблем с включването. Искам само няколко думи да кажа преди това по отношение на операционната система WIOS. Както казах, има допълнителни механизми за защита, допълнителни надстройки на протокола за управление на по-бързо превключване и възстановяване на връзката. И също така Westermo има разработен софтуер Reconnect, който да дава възможност. Това е добавка за конфигурация, за по-лесна конфигурация, когато има повече устройства. Разбира се, всичките суичове са достъпни за конфигурация или през браузера, или през командния интерфейс, но с помощта на софтуера Reconnect става просто по-лесно и така могат да се избегнат грешки, дублиране на пароли, евентуално някакви такива ефекти, когато има в мрежата по-голям набор от устройства. Reconnect е другия софтуерен продукт, който предлагат Westermo, и той е специално насочен към мобилните устройства и възможността да се ползва отдалечен достъп. Сега в ерата на Internet of Things, възможността да се качат данните в облак и да бъдат достъпни е изключително необходимо, особено за места, които трябва да се следят параметри на обекти, които се намират на десетки хиляди километри. Това, което исках да представи Нори, но ще продължа аз, е с разработката и по-нататъшното развитие на серията Lynx управляеми суичове, които, както казах, са специално насочени към енергетиката. Тук виждате някои от основните характеристики, за които вече стана на дума, но гигабитови портове, висока степен на надежност и компактен дизайн. Както се вижда на картинката, последният модел от серията Lynx е с 8 RG порта и 4 оптични. Както стана на дума, оптичните са с SFP портове. Изключително компактен дизайн. Всичките портове са от предната страна на панела, което дава възможност за лесно и бързо включване. Изводите за захранването дават възможност за резервирано захранване, да се ползва и резервирано захранване, така както се изисква за индустриалните приложения. Друго, което е характерно за суичовете от тази серия, че имат изключително широк диапазон на захранващо напрежение, така че не създават ограничения по отношение на това, ако вече има предвидено някакво захранване. Изключително ниско консумативни са по отношение на консумация, така че могат да се ползват почти навсякъде, където от 24 до 48 волта, до 60 волта има захранващо напрежение. Това, което искам тук, много ми се искаше Нори да го представи, но ще трябва аз да го представя. Една кратка характеристика, една кратка съпоставка с някои от конкурентните продукти на пазара, такива като Мокса, Хиршман, Сиско и Сименс. Отново искам да обърна внимание на този показател, за който стана дума в началото, така наречения MTBF или броя работни цикли между два отказа. И определено може да се...
Hello?
Hello, Nuri?
Yes, can you hear me better now?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, okay. I will...
Can you continue, please?
Yes, I can. I'm very sorry about that. Obviously, my headset did not work very well, so I was given access through my mobile. Thank you very much for having invited me, and I'm sorry about all this delay. First of all, I'd like to thank, of course, the Ritbul team for having invited me. We have worked with them for a very, very long time. We have a very close relationship with Ritbul in Bulgaria. They are very, very technical. They have very, very strong technical skills. They know our products very, very well. They have worked on a very, very large number of different applications to industry. They are specialized in providing solutions to the industry in Bulgaria. And so my name is Nuri Shakir. I am sales director responsible for sales to Bulgaria. So mainly to Europe, but also to Bulgaria. I'm based in Stockholm. I work for Westermo. Westermo is a company that was established in 1975. So we are 45 years old. We are one of the oldest producers of industrial data communications. Today, we are known as a producer of layer 2 and layer 3 switches and routers. But once upon a time, when we first started, in fact, we started with the introduction of modems. And then the applications were very, very simple, were factory-based, were very short, so over possibly 20, 30, 40 meters. That has evolved, of course, over the years. So the requirements, so the factory requirements increased, the networks got larger, the speed requirements have increased. The media that the switches and routers are required today are very diverse, and then the requirements from our customers are, of course, quite diverse. So we have adapted. As the networks grew larger, we obviously looked at introducing switches in 2000. We upgraded our switches and routers in 2010. And now we're actually now introducing, or we have introduced a number of products which are now based on the new platform. So basically new chipsets, new platform, and of course, new protocols as well. I don't know if I can. Can you go back a couple of slides? Yeah. Yes. Good. So today, our real focus is to make sure that our products are have a low cost of ownership. And what does that mean? Many of our competitors today, they will introduce products, layer 2, layer 3 products, where you purchase the unit, but you are not aware of the fact that any optional feature in the future, of course, is payable. When you purchase our products, you get, of course, the unit, you get the solution, and any upgrade, any introduction of new features in the future through our operating system are all free of charge. So you know what you are getting in terms of cost. We also try and make sure that instead of our customers purchasing 2 or 3 units to cover a particular application, so you will have possibly a layer 2 switch, and then you would need layer 3 capabilities, and you may need, of course, also a serial converter. All of that can be actually purchased in one unit. So you are reducing your costs. And also through the features that we have in our operating system in our units, you are able to also communicate remotely. So a maintenance manager obviously is not necessarily driven to go to each site and renew, change password, and activate units. If you can just go back to the previous slide, just thank you. And we're high performance. And this, of course, is what I would like to introduce here, is that we have a new chipset which provides really much speedier units, much speedier switches and routers. It's future-proof as well. So that will enable, of course, the introduction of higher speeds in the future. So when our ports introduce, for example, 10 gigabit, the current chipset will be able to manage that efficiently. Also, cybersecurity has become very, very important. In fact, it's one of the most important aspects when talking to our customers, especially in the field of electricity, water, and oil and gas and mining, as many of the companies can be state-owned and, of course, are liable or exposed to attacks. The next page, please. Thank you. So one of the products that we have introduced is, in fact, part of one of our sub-series, and it's the Lynx sub-series. This product is the 5512. It is a 12-port, all gigabit product. It took us time to introduce the product because having all gigabit and having, of course, to introduce so many SFPs into one unit, of course, there is always the heat aspect. So what we have done is that we have redesigned the Lynx. Some of you may be familiar with the older Lynx, which still exists, of course, and has different port configurations. We have redesigned this product to introduce a heat sink, which naturally reduces the heat, so the inherent heat from the unit. It is fanless, but we have a convection design that internally reduces some of the heat as well. And on top of that, we use paste, so absorbent paste to around the boards to minimize the heat dissipation. These are very, very resilient units. As I said, they are all gigabit. You have 12 ports. 4 of them are fiber ports, and the rest are all copper ports. And you have capabilities, of course, to introduce USB capabilities and also an inbuilt RS-232 converter. They're very, very high in MTBF. That is very, very important to know, and I will show that in the next slide. The MTBF is probably one of the highest in the market today compared to many of our main competitors. There are no moving parts. Of course, these are DIN rail mounted units, and their footprint is very, very small, and you will see that in the next slide. So if you go to the next slide, here what we do is we try to compare apples with apples. It's not always very easy. As you can see, the number of ports on the different switches are different, but we have introduced, of course, our own Lynx, compared with Lynx, products, so switches from Moxa, from Hirschmann, from Cisco, Redline, and Siemens. What is interesting to see here is some of the differences. You will see that the IP rating of the Lynx 5512 is the highest compared to the competition. That is very, very important, especially if you have environments that have a very, very large amount of dust, whether it's dust, inherent dust, or it is dust in the air. So that is very important. Also, you will see that the size is one of the smallest in the market. And that was what I was trying to say earlier on. The footprint is very small. As cabinets get smaller, in certain cases, for certain applications, of course, many of our customers are looking for smaller switches that you can put in. And if they need to increase the number of switches, they are able to do that without being worried about the space that is available. Power consumption. The power consumption of this particular unit is actually a little higher than some of our competitors, but I will tell you, and that is because they're all gigabit ports. So the SFPs, of course, will emit more heat. But the rest of our Lynx units will generally, compared to our competitors, will have a lower power consumption. As I said, the MTBF, you can calculate the MTBF in two different ways, either using the MIL standards or the Telecordia standard. But the two calculations will give you a higher MTBF, so mean time between faults. We also focus very much, and that has been really the main focus that we've had over the past 5 to 10 years, is to make sure that we have the right approvals. So to enter certain markets, we need the right approvals. And of course, the products will need to be tested by third-party units or third-party test labs. Many of our Lynx products have different certifications. So it would be ATEX certification, we have track site certification, marine certification, also certification for specific markets. So it'll be NEMA, for example, for transportation, and UL for the US market. So if you go on to the next slide.
Just give me a few seconds for a brief summary in Bulgaria. Вероятно вече. Okay. Както разбрахте, аз само ще направя кратко обобщение. Отново колегата обърна внимание на MTBF. Само да кажа, че 9500 хиляди часа и да кажа, че една година има 87 000 часа. Също така колегата обърна внимание на класа на защита IP, който е най-висок в сравнение с всичките останали конкуренти. Захранването, което споменах. И също така да обърна внимание, че всичките портове са гигабитови. Представителя на серия Lynx е с най-малки размери в сравнение с другите конкуренти. Продължаваме.
Right. Also, my presentation will include a number of success stories. We have worked actually a lot with certain divisions of large system integrators such as ABB and Siemens. And we have developed a specific application, so a specific products for applications that include harbor cranes. It doesn't have to be harbor cranes, it can be cranes for any other type. It can be within mining, it can be obviously within construction industry and so on, where there is of course a need to have more control and to monitor the activities of certain cranes. In this particular case, there were optical camera recognition systems that needed to be connected. They were connected to a larger network, and we introduced our Lynx. So the Lynx 5512 comes in layer 2, but also can be introduced in layer 3. You either choose one or you choose the other. In this particular case, the Lynx 5512, I believe that there are 20 units in all, were connected to specific cranes and in turn connected to a larger network using our protocols. And the backup in this particular case was Wi-Fi. Why did they choose us? Why did they choose Westermo? Well, they found it very easy to configure using our Westermo operating system and the WeConfig, which is the network management system that we have, they found it much easier to reconfigure our units remotely. Also, they found that the size of our units were very small. They had, of course, these cabinets that were placed quite awkwardly, so they had very little space. And in our case, obviously, the unit fitted in quite well. They were also very interested in full gigabit. That was due to, of course, the speeds that they needed, but also the packets that they needed. But also they were preparing their network for future use as well. Here, this is very interesting. We also used the Lynx in Milan. In fact, they were integrated into a trackside application. Ferrovie Nord is the state-owned company in Italy, in the north of Italy, that is responsible for the management of the train system in the northern part around the Milan area. So here we, in fact, helped them integrate approximately 600 Lynxes, and they were all connected to trackside for data recovery of different telemetry, mainly traffic monitoring, and of course the data is transferred to a central SCADA system. I visited the SCADA system, or it's a control center, and it's probably one of the nicest that I have ever seen. It's very modern. It's very up to date. Why do they choose us? A number of reasons. Temperature, we have wide temperature capabilities, so -40 +75. Fast recovery, that is also very important. We have a protocol that is an enhanced custom-made protocol that enables you to, should one unit fail in a particular ring, then the fast recovery is actually faster. It can reach 20 milliseconds, depending on the number of units in the ring. You can go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. Here, this is a very interesting example where we also have the Lynx. This is the Lynx DSS, where it has an inbuilt serial converter. We contacted this company. It is a very unusual company. It's one of the only companies that manages biologically and chemically to clean water. So it's basically household water, to purify it and to send it back into the sea. It is the only one that we know of that is underground. And so they use a process that is quite long, and they want to make sure that all of the equipment and devices that they have in the network work well, provide the right data, that they all are compatible, and of course that there is low failure rate, so that there is redundancy. So in our particular case, it took us time to convince them, but they had old devices that they had purchased and installed during the 70s and 80s, and they refused to replace them. So with the DSS, which has an inbuilt RS-232 converter, we were able to obviously connect our unit to those older units. So that was basically one important reason why they chose us, but also because they found that they purchased one box or one unit, so one solution, instead of several solutions which can be offered from the competition. Also, the electromagnetic compatibility levels are also to what they expected, because they had a lot of electronics. So obviously they were worried about emissions. Our emissions are low, and our immunity is actually quite high. So that was obviously a plus. This was in Sweden, in the north of Stockholm. You can go to the next slide. We've also introduced the Red Fox 5528, which is a 19-inch rack switch. This is probably now entering one of the most rugged units that we have in our portfolio. We also redesigned this unit internally and also externally. Here you have a heat sink. It is an aluminum enclosure. You have a heat sink externally. Internally, as I mentioned before, we also use paste around thermal paste around the boards. And we also use a convection design, which reduces the dissipation of heat as well. This is a 28-port 19-inch rack switch. It comes in different versions. It comes in a version where 4 of the ports are fiber, second version where 16 ports are fiber, and one where all of the ports are copper, but they're all gigabit ports. And of course, this unit is really made for larger networks where the capacity needs are much, much higher, where routing needs are much higher as well. This particular unit can come in layer 2 or in layer 3. It is not modular, but it is stackable. And of course, to the right, you can see also a earth connection as well. Here, of course, what I didn't mention before is that all of our units, or all of our links, or all of our layer 2 and layer 3 switches operate on the same operating system, which is the Westermo operating system. So once you have the Westermo operating system, you can use any of our switches, which would include, of course, the Lynxes, the Red Foxes, the 19-inch rack-mounted switches, as well as the, for example, the SHDSL extender that we have. Okay, you can go to the next slide.
Само за секунда, a few seconds for summary.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Red Fox 5528 е най-новия switch от фамилията на Red Fox. И той излезе вече в редовна разпродажба от края на миналата година. Както каза колегата, 28 порта, от които всичките са гигабитови в различни варианти на комбинация с мети оптика и подобрена конструкция по отношение на външната обвивка. Специално се обръща внимание на бързодействието на този свич, както и на това, че ползва същата операционна система UIOS, която ползват всичките свичове, независимо дали оперират в Layer 2 или Layer 3, слой 2 или слой 3 на системата за междуоперационни връзки. Това като обобщение. Нури, continue, please.
Yes, and here we've also tried to compare. It is not always easy to compare our products with some of our competitors' products. Of course, they're not always the same, depending, of course, on what they can offer, a number of ports, for example. But here you have an interesting comparison. One thing that I can mention here is that the power consumption of this particular unit is lower than most of our competitors, and especially the competitors that we have here, which are, of course, Cisco, Hirschmann, Moxa, and Siemens, which is the RuggedCom unit, which some of you may be very familiar with. The temperature range is -40 +74, but that can be increased. We also have tested the unit and can sustain up to 80-85 degrees for certain periods of the day, up to 3, 4, 5 hours, depending on where you are and what the requirements are. The IP rating is IP40. Of course, it's the highest compared with most of our competitors, except for RuggedCom. It is not, of course, I said, it's not modular. If you look also at the size, generally the size is slightly smaller than most of our competitors as well. As I mentioned, the power consumption is lower. It's 26 watts compared to 83 watts when it comes to Moxa in certain cases. Also approvals. The approvals are very, very important, of course. Right now we have UL approval, but we will include and introduce a number of other approvals, including ATEX and also marine approval. We have the 61850 for electricity, so substation automation applications. There we have that approval as well. So, like I mentioned before, approvals are extremely important. This unit comes in layer 2 or in layer 3. One point that I would like to make again is that when you are purchasing a layer 2 unit, it of course will be a layer 2 unit. If you're purchasing a layer 3, it will be a layer 3. But if you are introduced to new features by downloading our operating system. So all the new releases, they will be free of charge, compared to Cisco and Siemens RuggedCom, where all new features, especially the optional features, are payable. You can go on to the next slide. If you like.
Само искам да обобща това, което каза колегата. С звездички виждате къде са характеристиките, където на Westermo продукт е с по-високи характеристики. Трудна е съпоставката, защото продуктите на конкурентни производители са много близки по характеристики, но въпреки това съществено предимство е, че при всяка една промяна на операционната система тя може да се даунлоудва безплатно от сайта на Westermo, докато при конкурентите всяка една промяна е платена. Независимо суича дали е Layer 2 или Layer 3, може да се заради новата версия на операционната система, текущата, която е в момента.
Right. One thing I would like to mention also is that all of the production of our units takes place in Sweden. So we have a production unit which is over approximately 200 square meters, also 2,000 square meters, sorry. And so all of the production is done in Sweden. So the enclosure is produced in Sweden by a third party. We purchase components from different parts of the world, including the United States, Israel, Taiwan, and China, South Korea. So we import these units in some cases, and in some cases we purchase from third parties, so distributors. We test them in batches. These components are industrial grade, and we design our own boards. And if you look at the Lynx, or if you look at the Red Fox, which I mentioned earlier, you will find that the Lynx has 4 boards, and all 4 boards are designed by ourselves, and all of the components are mounted on the boards by ourselves, by our own machines, which we own. Okay, so we have state-of-the-art, certified, European production certified units. We test, of course, we go through the testing procedures, and that would include, of course, X-ray testing, optical testing, functional testing. So all of the units are produced in Sweden. So when you receive the unit, it is made in Sweden and made in Europe and nowhere else. It is not made in China and it is not made in Taiwan. What we have done is that we've introduced a new CPU switch core. It is much faster, much more efficient, and it is future-proof. So obviously today, of course, it can manage a 28-port all gigabit ports. And should we want to increase that in the future, that will also be possible. So basically the units with this new CPU switch core will be much faster, much more efficient. We'll be able to obviously operate in networks where really the downtime, the efficiency, and future-proof aspects are very, very important. Right, and just to give you a little bit of a comparison, the new Lynx in this particular case will have a much better performance. It will be, the ports are better isolated, the efficiency of the boards and of the components used, upgraded components, and the CPU will provide a much more efficient unit compared to the older Lynxes, which are of course still very, very important and very efficient and very, very capable. But we introduced this new switch core mainly to take care of what we expect in the near future. You can go to the next slide. Right. What we have also done is that we have introduced a new concept, and the new concept that we have is basically to cater for the energy market. We have, in fact, been responsible for providing the energy market with many of our products. Many of our products in the past have not been certified, so they have been fitted into applications that were not critical. And I do believe that we've also sold modems, converters, and some switches to electricity companies, electricity system integrators, and electricity companies in Bulgaria. So what we're doing now is that we're taking a step out of that and into the future. And you can go to the next slide. We are introducing two new products, the Red Fox 5728 and the Lynx 5612, which are based on the two products that I showed you earlier. However, they are adjusted to meet the specific requirements that you have in order to gain the 61850 substation automation approval. The Red Fox, of course, the power capabilities have been improved and widened, and the Lynx capabilities have also been widened there as well. You can go to the next slide. Basically, what we look at when it comes to 61850, the approval itself, it is divided into two, the class 2 and class 1. Basically, two different categories of requirements, which basically equate to different applications. Some are more critical than the others. Some require error-free devices. Others can be more compromising. In terms of locations, that will, of course, involve the high voltage substations, which cover approximately 36 kilovolts, the medium volt, and also protected areas. You can go into the next slide. Thank you, Miana. So yes, so our Lynx 5728 has KEMA approval. It took approximately 3 to 4 months to have the approval certified. KEMA is a Dutch company which is owned by a Norwegian DNV. It's a certification which enables our products to be integrated into most of the applications that are required in substation automation. So it is basically, it covers, so it's KEMA Gold certified, 61850 class 2. There is no data loss that is expected. And basically it'll be easily configurable, and it has high performance and will enable the throughput, so larger throughput for larger networks. And of course, it will use the WeOS, the Westermo operating system. You can go to the next slide.
Can I take a short summary in Bulgaria, please?
Yes, yes.
Само искам да допълня, вероятно разбрахте, но тъй като доскоро липсваше този сертификат в портфолиото на продуктите 61850, който изключително се налага за приложения в енергетиката. Именно за това един набор от продукти, който се нарича, който е специално насочен към автоматизация на подстанции, с разработени, с защитени сертификата 61850 и също така с KEMA сертификата, който е много рядък. Westermo има KEMA златен сертификат, което го поставя сред основните претенденти, които искат да играят в този сектор, които искат да участват в сектора с автоматизация на подстанции.
Right. So it is a 28-port all gigabit 19-inch rack switch. It is KEMA approved, KEMA certified. They're all gigabit ports. All of the connectors are at the front. That is very important. Of course, it simplifies things. When we compare to some of our competitors today, not all of them have, of course, all those connectors at the front. Some can be at the back as well. You can use, of course, fast Ethernet or gigabit capabilities. The SFPs that we use are pluggable, and they are small form pluggable units. They come in single mode as well as multi-mode. So the multi-mode will cover 2 kilometers, single mode up to 120 kilometers, and different variations of that. We also have bidirectional SFPs if the engineer has made a mistake, and that can happen, of course, and he has only one fiber left. You can use the fiber in both directions. We also have copper SFPs as well. And in this particular case, since it is really geared for the substation automation market, we also have introduced a number of standard communication protocols that are required for the certification. That includes Goose and MMS, and there's also PRP transparency. So of course, here you also, one of the big requirements here is that you have dual power capabilities. And that there is an extended power capability up to 150 volts DC, 156 volts DC, that is. And of course, the MTBF is very high. We're talking about 400, 450 hours, which is much higher. In fact, much higher than the rugged COM equivalent unit. You can go to the next slide, Rubiana, if you like. Yeah, so just to basically put this in perspective, the 19-inch rack switch, of course, would be for high voltage substations where you have 36 kilovolts in electrical capacity. So where you would have really high requirements, where monitoring and control is not forgiving. Here, you would obviously need proper redundancy, very robust capabilities, and no packet loss at all. And of course, you can use either the 4 fiber port version or the 16 gigabit fiber port version. And of course, this is for the unit is for very large networks and for networks that require also a network management system, which we have. We also have introduced a second product, which is based, of course, on the Lynx 5512. It is the Lynx 5612. It is KEMA approved as well. It is 12 ports, as I mentioned before, all gigabit. 4 of them are fiber ports. And they will be, the unit is DIN rail mounted, of course, if you have smaller requirements. When it comes to space, IEC 61850-3, and here it will be in class 1, where the requirements are not as high and where, of course, the electrical capacity is lower. Also very high MTBF, of course, around 400 hours, 400,000 hours compared to many of our competitors. And of course, it is future-proof. And you can go on to the next slide, if you like. Also very, very similar to the Red Fox. It is compliant to 61850. It's got 12 ports. It's got 4 fiber ports. It also has a redundant power supply that is also very, very important, up to 60 volts DC. And a wide temperature range, so -40. These type of units have actually been integrated in mountainous areas and also remote areas such as Siberia, where some of the temperatures can drop down to -40 on a number of days. Again, the Lynx, if you put it in perspective, it's mainly in protective areas where the requirements are maybe not as high, but it is, of course, 61850 approved and can be, of course, integrated into that type of environment. You can go on to the next. We have also introduced a power supply, which is the Westermo PS60. It is, of course, adapted, it's isolated, and it is 61850 approved as well. And in combination with the Lynx, it forms a package, and it will basically provide you with input ranges between 110 and 240 VAC. So, and the normal output voltage is 24 volts. So we basically have the complete package when it comes to the medium voltage and the protected areas, where you have the PS60 and the Lynx 5612. And they withstand together, they will withstand the 50 millisecond voltage drops that may sometimes appear, and supports 110 volts DC, commonly found in substations as well. So the full package is the following, of course: the Red Fox 5728 and the Lynx 5612. And we believe that with the KEMA certification, we will be able to address all of the requirements and the real rugged requirements that the energy market has. Okay, so the next part, I would like to describe a company that we purchased in October of last year. It is a fantastic little company. It is based in Dublin, Ireland. They have approximately 40 employees. They have a turnover of approximately 20 million euro. They produce very, very interesting routers. So wireless routers, LTE routers, routers that are specific and can be integrated in specific sectors, and also mobile wireless routers as well. So that can be mounted onto buses, can be mounted onto taxis, and into, for example, trucks so a fleet transportation. You can go to the next. Thank you very much. This particular company's expertise lies in two areas. One is the industrial sector, which I'll go into very shortly, and the telecom sector. So their specialty in part is the introduction of routers that are PCI approved, so compliant, which is the payment card industry. So what they do basically is that they work with telecom companies to introduce routers and the connectivity of these particular routers to ATM machines for banking services. It is the telecom companies that purchase these units, and it is the telecom companies that are, of course, responsible for the integration of these units. But of course, these units have to be PCI approved, and many of them are. The second sector or area that they work with is the industrial sector. And very, very close to the sectors that we work with. Of course, there would be oil and gas, there would be electricity, there would be water, and any industrial application that is required, for example, in mining as well. So what we have done, they have approximately 10 series, and we have currently in our own portfolio introduced 5 of these series. They're divided up into 2. One is for general purposes, so that would obviously cover the PCI market, that is the payment card industry, as well as for general industrial use. And the second sector would be the energy sector. And so these units, the LTE routers, can be integrated into, in principle, most of the substation automation applications. And they are IEC 61850 approved as well for substation approval. So one of the entry-level units that we have, which is very, very popular, has 2 Ethernet ports. It is also Wi-Fi capabilities. It has dual SIM. That enables you, of course, the switchover and redundancy that is needed. But it can also introduce 2 radio units. So 2 radio units are basically adds for critical mission application, adds the redundancy, so the higher level of redundancy. When you have 2 radio units in this particular device, then of course they will communicate on 2 different protocols, which adds to the redundancy. It operates on 12 volts DC, and it is has its enclosure is aluminium. So this is general use, and it can be used in different applications. So CCTV camera applications within a city, within a company, within mining, for example. It can be used, of course, in telemetry, where you have, for example, gas distribution within a city or water distribution in a city, where you have devices that need to be connected to a larger network. Connectivity to SCADA, for example, is also important, and also traffic and monitoring. So to connectivity to traffic light systems. You can go on to the next one, Rumiana. This is a higher, also for general purposes, but you would categorize it having higher or a larger number of hardware capabilities. Here you would have an inbuilt RS-232 serial port. So here you have 2 of them. And that is, of course, very interesting. None of our own routers, well, some of them do, but it is not very, very common in the market. Many of our competitors do not have the inbuilt RS-232 capabilities. Also Wi-Fi capabilities as well, and they have 4 Ethernet ports. What is very interesting about this particular company is that it is a company that is very flexible, meaning that if the requirements from a customer are specific, are very, very specific, and the applications are large, they are willing to design or redesign the existing units to include, for example, if the requirement is for 5 Ethernet ports, they can introduce that depending, of course, on the type of application that is needed. There are 2 digital input and output capabilities as well. And what is also interesting, which our wireless units do not have, and that is the PoE capabilities. So, and here it would be PoE Plus, which is 30 watts per port. And that is, of course, a very, very attractive aspect, especially if you have cabinets in remote areas where power is very hard to come by. You can go to the next slide. Yes, so be used in different applications, CCTV camera, CCTV applications, M2M, IoT, outdoor cabinets. They're very, very rugged, of course, and can sustain, has a wide temperature range, sustain high temperatures. It is IP40 as well. And it has dual SIM card capabilities, and you can include 2 radio units as well. You can go to the next slide. Here we're going into the energy part. These units are 61850 approved, so can be integrated into energy, so substation automation applications. It has 4 Ethernet ports, 2 SFP ports as well. You can reach up to 120 kilometers. Should you want to have back connectivity to the network itself, so LAN connectivity, or if you, of course, have different applications that you need to connect to. It has 2 serial interfaces, 2 SIM card, of course, the ability to include 2 radio units, so 2 radio modules should the need be. And it also includes protocol conversions units, which is, I think, a first. We don't have that in many of our units. So this particular unit can be used in energy, can be used in applications that really require high throughput and reliability. You can go on to the next slide. Here is another unit that is also 61850 approved. It includes also a mini RTU, so you can code the unit instead of purchasing a separate RTU and coding that unit. It is included in the router itself. It offers dual SIM capabilities and up to 72 volts DC, 4 Ethernet ports. It also includes protocol conversion. All of these units are also PCI compliant. That is also very important. PCI compliancy, which is for the payment card industry, requires basically 2 things that is very, very important. Apart from the redundancy, they require that the link between the unit and the telecom company be IPsec certified, so that it is encrypted. But they also require that the unit or the device be a dark device, meaning that no third party can enter and probe, as of course the payment. So the ATM market covers basically payment, money, and so on. So the security is on a higher level. So the cybersecurity level is, so the requirements of the cybersecurity level is very, very high. The unit that I have here is a GW3300, and it can be used for emergency services. So it can be included into police cars, fire engines, security units, trucks. So it is basically a mobile unit. So you can actually insert it and integrate it into a transportation form. It can be included also in buses, in trucks, and operates in very, very harsh environments. So there's a wide temperature range and also IP40 certified. It can also be used in the military as well. There have been a number of applications where they have been mounted onto vehicles. So this particular company, Virtual Access, is when it comes to the industrial sector, it basically covers different companies, smart metering, for example, smart grids, can be utility companies, it can be oil and gas companies, can be monitoring and control of the distribution of data within covering gas or water within a city. You have examples of the European police. 3 or 4 countries have integrated some of the products into their police forces. Also, renewable applications have also been quite prominent, especially in Germany and also in Scandinavia. You can go on to the next slide. Also another example would be traffic light. So connectivity to citywide traffic light converters or traffic light controllers for synchronization, and where, for example, where the fiber optics is not available or even copper is not available. So where, of course, a wireless routers, and especially LTE, would be required. So that is basically a short description of virtual access, which we purchased last year. Well, what I would like to do now is basically go through a number of examples, so success stories. I've tried to make it as diverse as possible.
Just give summary in Bulgaria, Nuri, please. Само кратко обобщение на продуктите на Virtual Access. Намират приложение в различни интересни сектори. Както може би разбрахте, лондонската такси компания използва продукти на Virtual Access, нали, модемите на Virtual Access за връзки между техните автомобили. Също така полицейските автомобили са оборудвани с модеми на Virtual Access. Приложение в енергийния сектор и в енергоразпределението. Така една много сериозна заявка. Също така в банковото дело, вендинг машини, банковото дело има се предвид връзка с терминалите, кеш терминалите и също така приложения свързани с управление на трафика и светофарните уредби.
One point that I would like to make about the payment card industry and the capabilities and also the success stories that Virtual Access has. They've sold approximately 25,000 routers to the PCI industry. So in one particular application, in one particular country with one particular operator, they can sell it on an average and help integrate on an average of maybe 3,000 to 4,000 units for connectivity to ATM machines. So those projects are actually quite large. They are very seldom small, but of course they work also on smaller projects that would include maybe 100 or 200 units. But generally they are much larger projects. Okay, so what I would like to do is I'd like to basically introduce a number of success stories that covers both the electricity market, the water market, the oil and gas market, transportation, just to basically give you a flavor and understanding, or just to put things into perspective so that that I have not just only spoken about products, but how do we integrate these products? What are the success stories? What are the ideas that are taken from that? And I also tried to make the success stories quite diverse, regionally, mainly in Europe, but that will give you an understanding of where these units have been integrated. In this particular case, it is a success story in Romania, in Bucharest. It's the municipality of Bucharest that contacted us about 4 years ago and were interested in upgrading and updating their network. And what they were looking for basically were an extender that enabled, of course, the transfer of data. But unfortunately, their infrastructure was quite limited. So they did not have fiber optic capabilities. They did not have fiber optic infrastructure around the plants. There were a number of plants around the plants that they had, but they did have a lot of copper. So they had twisted pair. And so to reuse the copper, they were able to integrate the DDW, which is the SHDSL unit that we have. It enables you to transmit data up to 50 megabits per second over, theoretically, it's over 12 to 15 kilometers, but in practice, it really depends on the cable and the size of the cable, the age of the cable. But in this particular case, they reached up to 4 kilometers. So they were able to transmit between 2 and 4 megabits per second over 4 kilometers, and that was sufficient. Here, one of our largest customers is in Dubai, and here it is DEWA, the electricity company, so the water company, the water and electricity company of Dubai, and it covers the city of Dubai, which has a population approximately 3 million, today. And here, basically, it is they used the Lynx 5512 together with a number of other products, the Lynx 210 and the RFI 219. It's basically connectivity between SCADA system and a number of collections, so data collection devices around the city. And we have integrated approximately 600 units in total over the past 3 to 4 years. Here, this is an Italian company, Edison. I think some of you are very familiar with this company. It is a distributor of electricity in Italy. And here they use the Lynx and the DDW, the Lynx for fiber optics, and the DDW for where they didn't have fiber optic capabilities and they had to use the existing copper, so twisted pair availability today. And here, basically, it was used for data transfer between substations. I believe that it was up to 150 substations around the city of Milan and a particular SCADA. This is an interesting case also to show how diverse some of our products are, and also the importance of the certification that we have. We are one of the, so Westermo is one of the largest suppliers of switches and routers for onboard train use today. So our customers include Siemens, they include Bombardier, they include Ansaldo, Hitachi, all of the companies, CAF, for example, all the companies that are involved in manufacturing trains. In this particular case, slightly different. It's a case based in Poland. The Polish government, through a particular system integrator, so NUAG, they were less interested in purchasing new trains and new locos, but they were more interested in, mainly because of budgetary reasons, but they were more interested in retrofitting the existing trains that they had. And those trains came from different parts of the world. And so we helped them, of course, integrate and upgrade and modernize their trains. And there are approximately, I believe today, around 3,000 to 4,000 Viper switches. So all PoE enabled and all gigabit enabled, which are basically connected to CCTV systems, but also PIS, so passenger information systems as well. We work a lot with oil and gas. So we work with oil and gas in cities. We work with oil and gas in areas where it is extracted. So it can be in the Middle East, it can be in the United States, it can be in Africa, and also can be in Europe, and it can be also in Russia. So the applications that we have dealt with, and where the Lynx and the Red Fox have been included. If you could just go back to the previous slide. Thank you very much. So the different applications include oil rig automation. So it can be oil rig, that offshore oil rig, for example, where you have a very important need for reliability. Pipeline automation, and that would be, the pipeline can be anywhere. We have been involved in automatic shutdown systems, so connectivity to automatic shutdown systems, and connectivity to pumping stations along pipelines in the United States, in France, in the UK, in Sweden. So those are some of the examples. Refineries, refinery automation, and it can be basically any type of automation within a refinery, where we have refineries that still don't have fiber optics and use old cables for connectivity, or will have fiber optics. Royal Dutch Shell, for example, BP is another company that we have worked with a lot. So we have been involved, and our units are basically installed in a very, very large number of refineries around Europe and also outside of Europe. Tank farm automation, where you have storage and you need obviously connectivity or monitoring capabilities of the data that is linked to identifying the level of the tanks themselves. Onshore wellhead, where you have, of course, extraction of the oil, and that can be quite advanced and quite tricky, where every wellhead has a lot of telemetry, where you have power, you have rotation, and where you have a lot of water involved, and you have different aspects that need to be monitored and controlled. Subsea automation as well, it has been quite important as well. We have actually integrated some of our boards into custom-made capsules that have been placed at the bottom of the sea, basically for connectivity as well. Gas distribution in Italy, Snam, which is a state-owned Italian company, it is responsible for the distribution of gas. And here we integrated approximately 1,000 DDWs. They are unmanaged DDWs. We have both the managed, the WEOS version, and also the unmanaged, which are also quite important. Hungary, we've also been involved here with basically connecting metering hubs to a SCADA system. And also here, also the gas distribution within the city itself. And it's a company called MFES, the gas company of Hungary, which was involved together with a system integrator. Typical mining applications, we've worked a lot with mining applications, especially in Latin America, but also in South Africa. We've worked with smelter automation, where we have monitoring of the process itself, mine monitoring and control, where open cast as well as underground mines, conveyor belt surveillance. We have actually been involved with 3 or 4 different conveyor belt surveillance in mines in the Czech Republic, for example. Mine hoists, so mine shaft hoist control systems, where you have the shaft and the hoist itself. This is a particular company that, well, there are several, but one of the companies is a South African company where we have integrated our some of our switches into their systems. Fire detection monitoring system is also very, very important. We've been involved there. We've been involved with a company in Israel called Telefire, and they have a particular system that they sell to mining sectors around the world. We've been involved with the different types of mines. So I mean, gold mines, diamond mines, base metal mines. In this particular case, it's Solvay, the Swiss, I believe it's a Swiss company. They control and own a number of mines in Macedonia. And here we use the Lynx to create a redundant ring to basically connect the mines control network. And here we use the Lynx 106. In Budapest, traffic light, we have worked with traffic light applications quite often in different parts of the world. These traffic light systems have been in different cities, London, Paris, outside of Paris, Abu Dhabi, and in this particular case in Budapest. So basically it's connectivity to traffic light controllers. And funny enough, in many cities, it doesn't have, I'm not referring only to Budapest, but I'm also referring to different cities. In certain areas, they will not have fiber optics, so they will have to be reliant on copper. So we have to obviously, and in certain cases, they need wireless units as well. So quite often we mix and match. This is a very interesting example where Saab, it is not the car manufacturer, but it is a system integrator that is also the producer of military aircraft. So, but it is a large conglomerate, but it is not the Saab that produces the Saab car. In this particular case, Saab was involved in Sweden. We have temperatures that can diverge in one day during the winter from -10 to +10. And that obviously has an effect on the roads, can have an effect on the traffic, and can be, of course, can create very, very dangerous circumstances. So along the highways, you will have road surveillance stations, and you can have thousands of them all around Sweden. And so we have been involved in a number of projects where our DDW, the SHDSL extender, which enables the connectivity over copper, to be connected to these units, and they were in turn connected to a central SCADA system. So these stations basically monitor the highway. They have temperature gauges, they have CCTV cameras, and of course they monitor the traffic, but they also monitor the conditions of the roads as well. WEOS, just a couple of words about WEOS, the Westermo operating system. Again, it is an operating system that is used for all of our switches and routers. It is an operating system that is based. It is an operating system that is based on Linux, which is basically an operating system that you can download from the internet. And all of the protocols that we use in weOS are actually open source protocols. That is very important. So Westermo is not a company that reinvents the wheel. We don't spend our time inventing new protocols. We basically download protocols, for example, that Cisco introduced over the past 10 years or have introduced recently. But these are open source protocols, and we integrate them. So the work that we do is basically the integration. So our R&D is the integration of these particular protocols into our operating system. We do, however, have a number of protocols that we have fine-tuned, and that is mainly to make sure that those protocols fit the requirements that our customers have. And that is, for example, FRNT, which is the fast network recovery protocol, and we have improved it to allow a ring recovery of 20 milliseconds. So weOS, of course, we have 2 releases every year. Each release will include new protocols, will include enhanced protocols, existing protocols, and will update certain protocols as well. Now, again, when you purchase any of our units, so any of our switches or routers, you will get in the price and in the unit itself, you will get the weOS. You will be able to download it, and any upgrade, any protocol that is introduced after your purchase date will be free of charge. Okay. And so we are working on introducing different functionality, both on the layer 2 as well as layer 3. We have introduced, of course, a number of communication protocols that are included in the IEC 61850. We've also included the IEE 1588 time sync, which is enables you to sync, of course, data nodes within a network, and also PoE capabilities as well. So enhanced PoE capabilities and hardware acceleration. You can go on to the next slide. What we also include in the weOS, so the Westermo operating system, is a network management system called Reconfig, and that really enables you. The larger the network you have, the more units you have from Westermo. With the network management system, you are able remotely, you are able to reconfigure your units, you are able to configure your network, you can build rings, for example, you can build different types of rings, horseshoe rings, for example, or round rings, or connect rings together. You can activate different protocols as well. Cybersecurity, you can, of course, change passwords remotely for a large number of units. For example, you can change firewall passwords. You can configure the firewalls on a port level per unit as well. So, and you can obviously activate IPsec in VPN tunnels. You can build VPN tunnels and so on. So there is a lot to be done. And of course, there are management reports that can be printed out from that as well. We also have what is called Reconnect. So you can actually, there is a function that enables you to connect to your own network, whether it's the factory network or it's the expanded company network. You are able to connect to that from any device wherever you are remotely. So it can be a iPhone, it can be an iPad, it can be any device or your computer that. And that connectivity, of course, is IPsec secured. It is encrypted, and it is a service that basically enables you that extra cybersecurity capability. Fine. So what is Westermo all about? It really is about industrial robustness. We are a producer of units. We don't have a huge portfolio. We don't have a diverse portfolio as many of our competitors have. They will cover different sectors. They will include, for example, RTUs and different types of PCs and so on. We are very, very focused on Ethernet switching and routing, and the products that we produce are very robust. We also deal with mission critical applications, which means that our units offer hardware and software capabilities that enable you to trust our units to monitor and control applications or the process, for example, in the chemo industry or in the oil industry or even within electricity to make sure that there is no downtime. Redundancy is very, very important. So all of the hardware as well as our software include protocols that have the capability of adding the redundancy that you need to make sure that if one unit falls, then the process continues anyway. Certification is very important. So all of our units are certified for different types of sectors that we work with. The cost of ownership, you don't need to buy 3 units, so 3 boxes or 2 boxes. You only need one, and you need one that will include layer 2 or layer 3 and will include also at times an inbuilt serial converter, for example. And of course, we believe that Westermo is a very reliable company. We provide reliable services, and we have very, very reliable and competent partners throughout the world, including Ritbul in Bulgaria. So that was basically it for me.
Аз ще направя едно кратко обобщение. Както каза колегата, цялата продукция, цялото производство на Westermo е насочено към промишлени приложения. Не какви да е промишлени приложения. Суичове, рутери, модеми с насоченост и приложение в индустрията, в така наречените стратегически важни обекти, където търсим високо ниво на сигурност. С какво се характеризират суичовете? С това, че поддържат висока степен на резервираност, имат необходимите сертификати, поддържат всички необходими протоколи, включително и такива, които се ползват от по-старите контролери, като GUS. Също така поддържат серийни интерфейси, които се ползват обикновено в автоматизацията, RS-232, RS-422, RS-485, като много от суичовете всъщност представляват 2 в 1 и суич, и конвертор на протоколи. Не на последно место, разбира се, че цялото производство е локализирано и е в Европа. Всяка една част от продуктите са произведени в Европа, в Швеция. Накрая, преди да ви благодаря на всички за вниманието, ако се сещате...
One aspect that I forgot to mention is that all of our products have a 5-year warranty. I think that's very important. The warranty covers the unit itself, and if you are purchasing a switch or a router that has SFP capabilities, the SFPs are also covered by that 5-year warranty. I can also add that when it comes to returns, our returns are very, very low. We have worked very, very closely to improve the quality, and so the returns today are way below 0.1%. They are very, very few and far between. And we produce approximately 100,000, at least 100,000 units of all the products that we produce per annum. So the return level is very low. Quite often, unfortunately, when the unit is returned, the damage is we suspect is created by, unfortunately, the customer or the individual that has manhandled the unit. Any questions?
Само и аз да обобща това, което забравихме да споменем, е, че всичките продукти са с 5 години гаранция. Така че това е една висока степен на гаранция. Ако се наложи, въпреки всичко, има случаи под 0,1%, има случаи на дефектирали устройства, заменят се безвъзмездно на клиента. Отново искам да ви призова, ако някой има въпроси, ако се притеснява или да пише на чата, ще се радвам да може да отговорим в момента. Ако не, за всички възникнали въпроси, може в последствие да изпратим допълнителна информация. Да изчакаме ли още малко някой да се пристраши за въпроси? Ами, няма. Някой, ако нещо иска да попита, ако има някакви впечатления, все пак. Значи, ако няма въпроси, да кажа за всички, презентацията ще бъде качена малко по-късно на нашия сайт. Ще има възможност да я видите, да я заредите, ако решите да я догледате и в последствие, ако ви хрумнат някакви въпроси, ние сме на среща. Благодаря ви на всички вас, благодаря и на нашия партньор от Швеция. Thank you, Nuri, for your assistance. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank everybody for their participation. And I am looking forward to meeting you all in the near future. I am very optimistic that I will be able to come and visit Ritbul in Bulgaria soon, despite of all the changes that have taken place. So, but thank you very much, everybody, and looking forward to meeting you. Thank you.
Благодаря на всички. Видях, че има въпроси свързани с цената. Ще прегледам мейлите от кого е въпроса. Може и на мейла да пишете. Ще ви бъде изпратена ценова листа. Също така, ако се интересувате от някакъв конкретен продукт, също може да се обърнете към нас. Още веднъж благодаря за вниманието. Желая всичко добро. Надявам се тази презентация да ни помогне да се видим отново с някой от вас. Хубав ден от нас!
Fy fan.